Welcome to my final part in this series of the war chapters in the Book of Mormon. Yesterday I taught gospel doctrine class and I had to go over 10 chapters. I think it was Alma chapters 43 through 52, and there was barely enough time to cover the first couple of chapters, as always, which is why I make these videos. I used to watch a show on the Discovery Channel called Gold Rush, and in that, I guess it's a documentary series, there were entrepreneurs who owned large rigs. They owned big trucks, lots of heavy equipment, and giant sluices, and all of this in order to collect tons and tons of earth and sift through gravel and sand and mud and dirt and rocks, all in order to get maybe a cup of gold dust by the end of the day or the end of the month or whatever their quota is. And that's what it felt like studying these chapters in order to, produce a cup of gold in the form of wisdom and a good lesson that my class could benefit from. And so poring over all the war chapters, the campaigns, the operations, the secret combinations, and all of those things taught me a few things, important things, which I shared with my class and I'd like to share with you as well. And I think one of the most important takeaways for me was the fact that the Lamanites always, if not almost always, came to fight against the Nephites because they were stirred up to anger by dissenters. There were always Nephite dissenters who defected to Lamanite lands, got them all riled up, got them all angry, and then got him to attack the Nephites. I don't recall in the Book of Mormon, in all my studies, a campaign of the Lamanites against the Nephites where the Lamanites of themselves just wanted to attack. It was always because of Nephite dissenters. Zarahemna was one. The Zoramites in Antionum were the same way. Amalickiah is the prime example. In Alma chapter 63 verse 14, after the Great Wars, there were some other dissenters who were not happy, and they went and stirred up the Lamanites to anger against the Nephites. It's always these dissenters that stir up the Lamanites to anger, who otherwise would probably just want to be left alone to tend to their crops and their families and just live in peace. Another takeaway for me was Captain Moroni's method of fortification, and also the armor that the Nephites wore. And it's a reminder to me that we also can have fortifications in our home. Our home can be a sanctuary, a holy place. You know, a few years ago, we weren't allowed to go into temples, and so our homes became our sanctuary. So we should be careful what we allow into our homes, into our cell phones, our computers. We can fortify against these things, and you can decide what that means in your life. As for armor, Moroni wore head plates. He wore shields. He had thick clothing. He also had shields over his loins. And it reminds me of Ephesians, the book of Ephesians. I can't remember what chapter, maybe chapter 6, I can't remember, where we read about the armor of God. You can wear the helmet of salvation, the belt of truth, the sword of the Spirit, the shield of faith. We can arm ourselves in our sanctuaries, which are already fortified. So in our homes and in our persons, we have layer upon layer upon layer of fortifications and shields and armor. And so we can always be ready when Satan's fiery darts come to cause us harm. We can be more prepared. So be careful what you allow. Another really important lesson that I took away from these war chapters is Lehantai, and I dedicated one video to Lehantai. Poor Lehantai. When Amalickiah wanted all the Lamanites to attack the Nephites, there were a lot of Lamanites that did not want to go to war against the Nephites. And the king of the Lamanites, he was angry, and so he gave command of his armies to Amalickiah. But a lot of Lamanites, they fled. Okay, this big army, the majority of the army, of the people of the army, they fled and to a place called Oneida, and in Oneida there was a hill or a mount called Antipas. So this left Amalickiah with the remainder of the army that were still loyal to the king and would gladly go fight against the Nephites. But this army was smaller, so Amalickiah had the smaller army, while this larger army fled to Oneida. They decided to appoint a leader, and that leader was Lehantai. They appointed him to be their leader, and so they saw Amalickiah coming with his army, and they were getting ready to defend themselves. They didn't want to go against the Nephites. Lehantai had the high ground. He had the greater army. He had the numbers, and he was at the place of arms, so he was well fortified. In my mind, he had every advantage. I don't know what his provisions were like, so maybe he only had a limited supply of food and water. We don't know that. But we can assume that that may be the case, and so Lehantai and his army could wait Amalickiah out for a period of time. Amalickiah tried persuading Lehantai to come down 3 times to have a chat, and 3 times Lehantai refused to come down. So Amalickiah goes up the mount to have a chat with Lehantai. Say, hey, bring your guards and let's have a chat. And so Lehantai, he agreed to that much. And this is where Lehantai's smarts. This is where we see the limit of his smarts, his discernment, his IQ. Amalickiah persuaded Lehantai to take his bigger army, come down the mount by night, surround Amalickiah's smaller army so that they could get scared and surrender. And Lehantai said, okay, we'll do that. So the next morning, when Amalickiah and his army woke up, they saw that they were surrounded by this bigger army of Lehantai. And Amalickiah's army, they were scared for their lives. They thought they were going to be destroyed, so they begged Amalickiah to let them fall in with their brethren, led by Lehantai. Now, the only reason Lehantai agreed to this was because Amalickiah proposed that Lehantai allow Amalickiah to be second in command. So now Lehantai is commander of the entire Lamanite army with Amalickiah as second command. And you know the rest of the story, or you should. And of course, Lehantai is poisoned by degrees because of the craftiness of Amalickiah and his servant. And so the Lamanites having a tradition that if the leader is killed, the second in command becomes the leader. And so now Amalickiah, he's got it made in the shade. Now Amalickiah is in charge of the entire Lamanite army. So this is a lesson for us, or for me, and I'm sharing that with you if you haven't thought about it. When you have the high ground, don't surrender it. If you have a witness, if you have a testimony, if you are sure and are led by the Holy Ghost, stay led by the Holy Ghost. Don't let yourself be led by temptations or distractions. Maintain your high ground. It also reminds me of Star Wars, when Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin are fighting with their lightsabers, and there's lava everywhere. Obi-Wan Kenobi jumps up on a hill, and he tells Anakin, "It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground." And Anakin's pouting, "You underestimate my power." Well, what happens? Anakin gets his legs chopped off. So don't give up your high ground. Okay, make sure you're fortified. Wear the armor of God. Your home is a place Your home can be a holy place, a sanctuary for you and your family. Okay, these are my takeaways. And then finally, just want to be aware of secret combinations. Amalickiah, we don't really see, the term secret combinations used, but we can see it happening. It was through Amalickiah's cunning craftiness that caused the downfall of Lehantai and also the king of the Lamanites, and eventually his own downfall. So, yeah, because of his conniving, conspiring craftiness, it was his cunning secret combinations that caused the death of so many thousands of people, Nephites, Lamanites, on both sides. So there you have it. We'll call them the 5 C's. The cunning, craftiness, and conniving secret combinations of Amalickiah. There's another C, I guess. Look out for secret combinations. We are warned about secret combinations in Ether, chapter 8. Moroni warns us today to be aware, to wake up to our awful situation that we find ourselves today. And secret combinations are prevalent all around the world, here in the U.S., and even here in my state of Utah. I see it plain as day. So fortify yourself against all these things. That's what these war chapters have taught me, and I hope that that's what these war chapters have taught you, and hopefully more. And if you've learned some new things, feel free to share them with me. Have a good one.